Hey guys, what's up? So before I get into this, I'd like to thank you all for the 100 subs that I got on YouTube recently. The over 500 follows I have on Twitch now, and the over 50,000 unique Twitch views, or not unique Twitch views, but total Twitch views. I really appreciate it, guys. And I haven't really gotten a chance to thank you because I have been at home on a laptop that can barely record this video. So streaming and making YouTube stuff is for actual gameplay is really hard right now. So sorry that that's not working out. But I would like to talk about this as this is for those that don't know. Most of you do though. XTV posted a Yao vlog about the future of competitive TF2, and I feel like there's a lot of not misinformation, but I feel like it's a very one-sided video. And I'd like to present the more casual players or the people that don't necessarily keep up with the scene quite as much. I'd like to present the other side of the picture for them. And this video might be a little bit long, but I feel like if you are invested in the future of this game, it might be an important thing to watch. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and hop right into it. I already queued it up to where he starts talking about it right away.
It ties into, well, I don't know, the future of competitive TF2 as well as what XTV has in the works for 2015. Now, in 2014, we started developing this format called Arena Respawn. And as soon as I played it, I was hooked. I was like, this reinvigorates TF2 for me, makes me excited about TF2 again, and makes me enjoy playing TF2.
So this is kind of, I played in some of the not invite arena respawn pugs, but I played in some of the ones that happened after that, so with a lot of invite players and a lot of ESEA IM and open players as well. And I really enjoyed the arena respawn format as a fun thing to do, and I'll get into that further later.
Now, that's not like a downside about sixes. I enjoy sixes, and I have a lot of respect for sixes. And actually, when I went to GXL in October, that kind of like made me take a step back and be like, "Wow, Sixes is really awesome," and you know, it's really fun to watch. It's a great game, great teams in it, great people in it. But at the same time, you know, I think that the Sixes community still hasn't really responded to the direct feedback that myself and Salamancer received from Valve when we went up and visited a couple years ago. And
that's, in my opinion, because the feedback that they got back was bad. A lot of the feedback, and he'll talk more about it as the video goes on, but a lot of the feedback was odd and kind of out there. Along with the fact that this conversation that he had with Valve and Salamancer happened several years ago. I think right about 2 years ago now. And they're just now pursuing this, which is very odd to me.
Probably the two key points that boils down to are working with the meta that Valve is implementing into the game. And
okay, the Valve meta right now, the meta that they're trying to implement into the game is, to be honest, feeding into what the typical pub player wants, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine by me. They add new weapons that I mean, they're not necessarily perfectly balanced weapons. They add, you know, hats and all that stuff. But Valve's main concern right now with TF2 is keeping the casual pub TF2 community alive and well. And they're doing a pretty good job. TF2 still has like 80,000 players on average play, like, consistently, like, every moment. And that's a big number. But it's important to remember that the meta that they're making this game into isn't a competitive meta. It is a silly stupidity meta. And I mean, that's fine. I, as a competitive player, really enjoy pubs because, I don't know, I think they're fun. But to say that I want to play pub TF2 competitively, that would be just the least fun experience ever. And I'll get into that later.
I think that's a very huge deal. Basically, 66 is kind of playing like a version of TF2 that's several years old.
We're playing the version of TF2 that's several years old because we being the Sixes community, people don't realize how much time we spend playing sixes. During the on season, on average, in my experience as an open player, my team spent last season 5 nights a week, 3 hours all of those nights, playing this game, working at getting better at this game. And to do that without hating ourselves, we could not, like, I can't bring myself to play with these unlocks. And if anybody that is criticizing this, this thing tried, then they would quickly understand that a lot of the weapons in Team Fortress 2 are inherently flawed in the view of a competitive format. So it's kind of silly to say that we should, cling on to these new unlocks and these new metas that Valve is creating, when in actuality the new metas that they're creating are intended to just be goofy fun. And to use those as competitive gaming aspects, it's just very odd.
We've integrated some of the weapons that were not fully vanilla, where we have gunboats, we have Kritzkrieg.
We've integrated the weapons. Every single weapon that we, as a community, have decided is fun to add into the meta, we have added. We, as Sixes players, aren't against diversifying the meta. Many of us, are against diversifying the meta in a way that makes the game less fun. So to us, to most people, playing with mini-century Engies on mid isn't fun. So because it's so powerful, it shuts everything down. It lowers the skill ceiling in that it makes it harder for people that aim to kill people and easier for people that place mini-sentries to kill people. So you shrink the meta and you lower the skill ceiling by adding these weapons, and that's not what we want. That's a way to make a less competitive game.
But at the same time, we're not directly connected to the meta. If you look at Counter-Strike or Dota or League of Legends or any other game that's really played competitively, you have these patches that come out and change things around. And the Counter-Strike community didn't respond by being like, wow, the CZ750 is crazy strong right now, so we're just going to ban it.
Okay. That's because these unlocks and these new heroes or champions or whatever they're called in the MOBAs are specifically made to be played in a competitive format. Valve wasn't thinking when they made the quick fix changes, for example, how is this going to play out in 6v6 play? They don't care about that. They care about, how is this going to be played in 12-slot Dust Bowl servers? Oh, yeah, this works out. This will work. And that's great for the Dust Bowl servers. But to try and adjust your game to become that, it just makes the game more broken. And we saw that at Season 14 LAN, which was just lots of stalemates and lots of really slow play because we played with a weapon that Valve had changed specifically to be made into a pub weapon. It was made into a competitive weapon at the same time. And we tried it. We tried doing that. We tried just chugging along and working through it, and it was not a good experience. But yeah, these games are games that are balanced around their competitive formats, and TF2 isn't that game.
They were like, okay, well, now we have to adjust that,
And also, there have been champions added to, I forget what, it's either Dota 2 or League, where they added it before a big finals or a championship or a world match or whatever, and they were like, no, this is kind of not good, so we're just going to take it out. So it's not 100% of the time they always play with what's added. But that's not as big a point as the other one.
And I realize that TF2 is definitely a little bit crazier in terms of some of the weapons that come out. And some people feel they're really gimmicky. Some people don't like playing against them.
This is a thing that he does throughout this video, where he counters what he says and then throws away the counter to what he says, if that makes sense. So he'll say one thing, he'll say the counter to that thing, and then he'll dismiss the counter to that thing. And I don't think that's a very good way of showing both sides, which is kind of why I'm making this video.
And some people also, in terms of sixes, don't like playing heavy, don't like playing against pyro, these sort of things.
I don't mind playing against heavies. I don't mind playing against pyros, because teams that are good know how to counter those classes. It's kind of a small viewpoint to say, man, Sixes players just don't like playing against Pyro because they don't know how to adjust their play to the Pyro. But that's really mainly an issue at lower levels where people just don't know how to counter things that aren't, the straight up standard 6 class rollout or loadout or whatever. So I don't think that's a good concern at all.
And that's why the sixes meta has kind of come out how it is, and that certain things have been restricted, and like the gloves are running urgently are restricted.
The sixes meta is the way it is because it is the broadest that we can get the whitelist that TF2 offers without making the game not fun for people that play the game. And then he goes on to say something about the gloves are running urgently.
Not because they're like overpowered, but because then that promotes the heavy being run to middle.
But that is overpowered. So I mentioned this on the forums. The gloves of running urgently are overpowered, and that's kind of hard to deny, especially if you have... an example of what makes them overpowered. You very rarely use your melee weapon ever as a heavy, because why would you? It's not very powerful. You have a really short range. You go from being this big monster of a class who can just mow down people to being a class that whacks people with your fist for the same amount of damage as every other class except for Scout. So you don't want to do that. But now you have the gloves of running urgently. The only downside to the gloves of running urgently is I think there's like a 25% damage penalty, and you take mini crits when you're wearing them. But if you run it out to mid, there's no one that can hit you on your rollout. And then when you get to mid, you just take them off. So then you basically have what is a straight upgrade. Something that forces all players to run that item if they want to be competitive in the game. And that is an overpowered weapon in the vast majority of people's opinion. So saying it's not an overpowered weapon, it just helps you get to mid faster without any consequences is kind of a silly thing to say.
And the Sixes community has made some strides to adjust that in terms of playing with an open whitelist. But some of the feedback from that has been like, well, this isn't really the Sixes I love anymore.
The feedback from the game isn't mainly, this isn't the game I love anymore. It's the feedback was, at least my feedback and everybody that I had talked to's feedback was, this wasn't fun to watch. It wasn't nearly as cool or competitive or, action-packed. It was more like, is he going to hit that direct hit air shot? Oh, he did. Cool. That was awesome. Okay. Oh, they just lost the round. Oh. It was like you didn't have a very good foundation for what to expect, if that makes sense. So because of that, you had a much harder to watch game and a much less entertaining game. It wasn't that this is different so we don't like it. This is different in that it's broken and that it's not as fun to watch. It's not as action-filled, and it's not as skill-oriented as 6v6 with a whitelist. So that's why we don't like it. It's not because, oh, it's different. That's a very, once again, small thing to think.
And, maybe this is going to be closer to what is going on with the Valve meta and the pub game, but this is not really what I enjoy out of this game. And the other aspect that could tie into this, that still, if the Sixes community wants to make these strides and these changes that Robin was talking about, the other issue is bringing in some sort of pick or ban format.
So pick or bans are really good in games where you pick and ban, and then you pick all of the things that you're going to be playing that game, and then you're done. No more changes, no more anything. The thing with TF2 is that you're constantly changing. Sixes with a whitelist, we love off classes to counteract advantages. So if they have a player uber advantage and they're about to push your last, we'll go heavy to build up our health on our last. But the thing is, if you have picker bans, along with like no whitelist, then you're just going to have 7 classes that you're able to play at any given time with any loadout at any given time. And what that does is it just promotes... Excuse me, I had a big dinner. It promotes play that... thought process. It promotes play that is based around what can we do to trick the enemy team. which is kind of okay, but it gets not fun after a little while. It gets to be, what's the most gimmicky thing we can do in any given situation to throw off the other team? And a lot of people aren't okay with that.
That freshens up each game and brings new strategies to every single match. That was a comment from Robin Walker, that kind of guy, I don't know, overplayed or over-exaggerated, where he said that he was bored with sixes.
He's bored of TF2, period. He left the TF2 development team. He doesn't care. Like, I don't understand why anyone would try to focus something onto what this guy likes. I mean, he made Team Fortress, but he doesn't care anymore. He got bored of sixes just like he got bored of the game that he made. So to try and please him with decisions, it doesn't make sense.
And maybe not exactly that term, but he's seen it all already. And it's no disrespect to the skill that it takes, but
this is a thing that a lot of people say. I've seen everything that Sixes has to offer. And that's just it's a thing that I kind of understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, it's a really ignorant thing to think. And I'm going to try to explain it without, offending anybody. But saying I've seen everything in Sixes already is like, I'm going to take the example of American football. Every single play, they line up in a line and then start the play, and they're going to pass it, or they're going to run it, or they're going to do a weird trick play every once in a while. You know what to expect. You know that during the fourth down, they're going to kick it. You know that, if they have 90 yards to make up, and it's the last play of the game, they're going to friggin' throw it, or, try a weird run play. But just because you know what to expect doesn't mean that you've seen it all before. That's like, you're watching football or whatever sport you watch, and you have the one friend that's like, oh, this is so boring, I've seen it all before, and it's just the most frustrating thing to hear, because, you recognize that it takes skill, and you recognize that there is a meta that these people are thinking of, and you can think, you can think along with them, like, what are they going to do? Are they going to throw? Are they going to pass it? Are they going to run it? Are they going to do this or that or the other? Are they going to push with this Uber, are they going to kite this Uber and then try to re-Uber? Or are they just going to, spam the point? What are they going to do? There's a lot of things that go into this game, more than, the basic things that you see, more than the push with Uber advantage, don't push with Uber advantage, It's a lot more complicated than people make it seem. And to say we've seen it all before is just showing not only that you don't really understand how competitive Team Fortress 2 works, but also that you don't understand how sports or any esports work. Moving along.
But Sixes is very repetitive in its current format,
Which is a good thing for a lot of people because it raises the skill ceiling. It makes people know there's a limited number of things that people can do, So what among the limited number of things can we do that will maximize our success? Put that together with raw DM power and we'll see who wins. And that's what a lot of people, especially the people that really care and really play the game at a high level, that's what they want.
It's scouts and soldiers and medic and demo to mid. There's no real switch up there, and there are intricacies and deep strategies, but it's harder for people to notice than for people to watch.
It's the same way with any sports. Just because, in basketball, they always try to shoot the goal, and they always have a few people outside and a few people inside, and, people blocking other people, it doesn't mean that it's bad and it needs to be changed, and there need to be dice that are rolled and all that to make basketball more interesting. You just get used to it, and you watch it, and you're like, this is cool, and it's really skill-based, and, and you'll see a really amazing play every once in a while. And that's what you get out of sports, not, man, I wonder what's going to happen next. I have no clue. It could be anything, and you don't want that as a spectator. You don't want that, and I'm just saying, I'm talking broadly. You in particular may want that. But in general, people don't like that. That's kind of goes against their nature. If they want something that they can kind of expect and then occasionally be surprised about.
Now with Arena, well, let me finish up. Sixes could integrate a ban system. Probably more likely the best way to do it would be to do an open whitelist and then have bans per map.
Yeah, it would take a long time to do. I'm thinking in pickup games that I play in. It'd take, like, in the Arena Respawn pickup games, it took almost as long to come up with all the picks and bans as it took to play the actual game. So, just, that might work for actual, like, matches and stuff, but I want to play the same game in pickups that I'm playing in matches. So saying, oh, you just pick and ban before and after everything, that takes a lot of time, and also it's not as effective as a single whitelist, but I'll get into that later.
So, you would ban 3 weapons each per team, and that would be a really good way to deal with things like the Babyface Blaster, where...
Or you could just use the most effective way to deal with the Babyface Blaster, and don't put it on the whitelist. So, like, he's trying to do the same thing, but weirder, and, like, Okay, moving on.
It just kind of, the scouts themselves don't necessarily want to play with it, because then they're like, now I can't double jump, and I like double jumping, I think that's fun. And
so, like, nobody wants to play with it, so why put it in the game?
As well as, an opinion that something is really overpowered. And so, those are things that I would like to see Sixes integrate. An open whitelist and an item ban.
That's been tried, though, and it takes too long. It's not as fun, and it's not as competitive. The skill ceiling is lower, and the meta, despite having more weapons, is shrunk. Because once you have an overpowered weapon, you have no choice but to either run that overpowered weapon or a weapon that directly counters that overpowered weapon. So a lot of overpowered weapons might have a single counter, but then you have to run that to counter the overpowered weapon. So either both have to have an overpowered weapon, or you have one person devoted to countering that overpowered weapon and doing nothing else, and it just gets really boring to watch.
TF2 Center, more casually games can just play all items allowed. And that also allows teams to kind of experience things and then realize, like, Babyface Blaster should be banned. Or be like, oh, yeah, I played in a lobby and some guy was running Engineer Gunslinger and it's not really that big of a deal. Here's how you counter it. And I hope that would create more new strategies in Sixes, and we'd have teams that are running Pyro full-time or running Dead Ring or Spy full-time.
But, like, they have the option to run Dead Ring or Spy full-time right now. I'm pretty sure Dead Ringer isn't banned in a lot of leagues. So, like, why don't they? They have that option. Because it's not good. So, I mean, it's already an option. That's there. You can do that. Okay, moving on.
And bringing out more wacky strategies that make things interesting. But also, how I've played with things, and at least my interpretation of some of the reactions from the Valve show match people, is that with Sixes, it's not necessarily going to make that jump. Arena Respawn...
It's not. That's one thing I agree with him on, is that Sixes isn't going to make that jump to the open whitelist, because Sixes players want to play the most serious form of competitive they possibly can inside of Team Fortress 2, which is now, it wasn't a while back, but which is now not a competitive game anymore.
However, is a completely different format from Sixes. And I think that's something important that, some of the people that have, like, reacted with a bit of hostility or just like, no, there's no way Arena Respawn is going to catch on. I think that some of those people, need to see Arena Respawn more as a different format. It's a different offering of TF2. And, of course, sure, there's the debate of whether we should be creating another format.
That's not even a debate. What XTV and PBL are trying to do with Arena Respawn is create a new format, a new game mode in TF2. So they took the least played game mode in Team Fortress 2, which is Arena. They changed it into a game mode that doesn't even exist in Team Fortress 2 and tried to make it into a competitive game. Pub Arena Respawn is fun, in my opinion. 5v5 casual Arena Respawn is fun, in my opinion. But the moment you try to take you try to take Arena Respawn and put it in a competitive environment, you're going to have issues, because the Arena Respawn meta will, and it doesn't take a theory crafter or a really, intuitive person to play that plays the game. It doesn't take long to realize that if you have a lot of times to change classes, and you have like a nearly open whitelist, the meta is going to revolve around running the most broken weapons and then switching constantly back and forth between the most gimmicky weapons. And that's not a competitive game. It's a game, and you might be able to play it and, play different teams with it, but that's not going to be competitive in a sense that it's going to be fun to watch or competitive to play or show anybody who's better. It's just going to show who got lucky with what loadout they ran when. So, I mean, I'm going to continue the video because I'm kind of going off.
But, I think it's part of our step of evolution. I think it's something that we should consider because, yeah.
And it's perfectly fine to consider it. But to drop one of the longest running competitive video games, to drop coverage of that, to try something new in our evolution of the game is really just not a good thing to do. Continuing.
Valve hasn't been paying us attention.
Valve hasn't been paying attention because we don't do anything for Valve. We play the game that they made really well. But the community is one that, it's the high-level competitive players just want to play this game, and they just want to play sixes or people are up for playing things other than sixes too. Bloodsire, I think it was, posted on TFTV that he'd be up to try 5v5 Prolander, which is one of every class 5v5. So, people are up for trying new things, but this is not the thing that they want to try. And Valve doesn't care about this competitive community because it's not profitable for them. And the moment we become focused on what Valve wants, that's the moment we lose what's the best possible thing for this game, and we pick up what's the thing that we can make Valve money with to help, attract new players into this game. And that's not, I don't understand that thought. I don't get why anybody would compromise the quality of the game that you play just so that you get bigger numbers, unless you want to do something to where you're making, a full-time job out of it or something, which, that's the only reason I can think of doing this. So, to compromise the community, which has proven itself as one of the most sustainable online competitive communities, just to appease someone that has never cared about the competitive community, just seems really short-sighted? I don't know the word for it, honestly. I don't even know if there is a word for it. It just seems really silly, I guess I'll say.
And that ties into these other things that I mentioned. Some of the things that, the community says that we want from Valve, I think is more on us. If it comes to items, if it comes to tournament support, selling a compendium to increase the prize pool for a tournament, even, selling an item to raise funds to send teams to I-55.
This is a tangent that has nothing to do with Arena Respawn. I agree with a lot of those things. I think that that's a good thing to do. That raises money for the community. It makes Valve say, the competitive community is a thing. These are things that you can do with 6v6. You don't have to switch to Arena Respawn to sell a hat on the market.
That's something that's on us to present the item to Valve, and then hopefully they'll implement it in the game. But if we never even present them with an item, or create tournaments that are leagues that are strong enough to really garner such support from Valve, then it's just never going to happen. They're just not going to reach out and do that. Everybody in Valve, they work on what they want to work on, and that's not to imply that none of them want to work on competitive TF2, but they have enough on their plates that they need our assistance in building up this competitive scene. With Arena Respawn, I think that it brings a lot of fun to the table. It's kind of more of a lighthearted mode than 6 is, and
the future of competitive TF2, lighthearted mode. Those aren't the same thing. It's perfectly fine if you want to make a silly gimmick league for lighthearted competitive Team Fortress 2 playing. But in a lot of players' eyes, in the players that actually want to put the time in, that's not competitive. That's something below competitive. That's something that we would classify as fun. Sure, why not? It's fun. But it's not competitive. It's not a game that we can work to be the best at. It's a game that we can work to maybe win sometimes and get lucky sometimes and, maybe win more times than not, but it's not something you can perfect, which is what people hate, which is what people don't want in a game that they're pouring, 50 hours every week into. It's not something that people want. And the people that are most upset by this are the people that are going to be playing this. So the players at the highest level of competitive don't want to have to deal with this. They don't want to have to deal with, playing against that cloak and dagger spy hiding in the corner to delay time. They don't want to have to deal with that kind of thing. So to get rid of the thought of what these high-level players want and to focus on what will make Valve happy or what will, appeal to the masses is an ignorant thing to think. And I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but it's really silly to think that we should change what we want, not based on what the players of the game want, but based on what we can get with spectators or what we can get with support from Valve, which is never going to happen unless, we become profitable, which isn't going to happen either. Continuing.
And it's just really easy to get 5 random people, 5 different skill sets, and throw them in together and have a good time and have a good match.
It isn't. I've played in pugs with high-level players, and they work great. Most of the players know how to play every class that I played. The first time I played in Arena Respawn, we played with, people that knew what they were doing on every class, and they could play any of the classes with any of the loadouts and be sufficient at it. And I was like, wow, this is fun. And it really was. It was really fun. And then I played in lower-level pugs. The issue going down to there is that you pick 5 people that you barely know. You don't know what class they're going to be on. You kind of have a vague idea of who can play what class, but you have no idea what your lineup's going to be. So you have to pick 5 people that aren't good at one or 2 classes, and you pick these people, and then the other team bans the thing that would make your team the most fun to play with for you because it's what you're best at. And then you have to make it work out with the 7 remaining classes with 5 people. And a lot of times it doesn't work out at lower levels because you have people that specialize in, Pyro or NG or Soldier or, Heavy. And they're not able to play what they want. And it's the same problem that's in 6s. And the problem is that you're never going to be able to always play what you want unless you're playing Highlander, which already exists and is fun. So to say it's easy to get that together, it took half an hour for every pug that I played in to get started, and then the pugs last like 20 minutes per map. And it wasn't as fun as it could have been, because it took so long to get going. Once it got going, people were like, that's the only class I can play, and it got banned, so I'm just gonna have to, do nothing, and then it's 4v5. So it's not easy to get these 5 people together. In comparison with 6v6, you have 4 classes that people play. You have 2 soldiers, 2 scouts, a medic, and a demo. So I'm going to pick this guy because he's good at soldier, this guy because he's good at scout, this guy because he's good at demo, another good soldier, another good scout, and then I'll play medic. And then that's how and then you start the game once you've picked. And that's it. So to say it's easy is odd because it's easier to do it in the other format that already exists and is proven.
You can switch up your classes really frequently because of the round structure.
You really can't, though, because you have 5 people and 7 classes to play. So you have 2 classes to switch between, which is less than what you're able to switch between in 6s. Continuing.
The ban structure creates fresh strategies for each.
Fresh strategies are gimmicky strategies. Fresh strategies that might be fun for casters to say, lol, look at this, what's happening. But strategies that for players is just, making them want to, jump out of a window because it's so terrible and not fun to play with.
Each map. The mercy rule limit means that, match could just be over real quick.
Same thing in 6s. Win by 5. You get to 5 rounds. You can get to 5 rounds in under 10 minutes.
And then you go to the next map. The 20-minute structure when there is no mercy rule, 7-round win limit. Then you get a nice intense match that goes for 20 minutes. And I think that's a nicer, shorter time than even the 30 minutes of the Euro 6s.
I mean, that's just the most subjective thing that has ever been subjective. I mean, he likes 20 minutes. That's great. But that doesn't mean anything. That means nothing.
Format, although, in my opinion, North America should adopt that Euro format. I like it.
I mean, I like it too. A lot of people like it, but, I mean, once again, just completely subjective with no, I like it because. It's just, I like it. So maybe you could like it too.
A lot. You know, the other thing that ties into this with the Arena Respawn and the bans and all this is Pro Battle League. And Pro Battle League, you know, we're trying to build up a regional structure for Team Fortress, for an esports league.
Go for it. What I don't understand is why you would pick, why PBL would pick TF2 as the game that they want to launch this league that they want so badly. But then they don't play TF2. They play Arena Respawn TF2, which has never been played before, which has never been proven to be good before. So, like, I play... okay, continuing. I'm sorry.
Hope that it's Team Fortress, but honestly, you know, we have to look out for Pro Battle League as a business. It's the same thing for XTV, where TF2 is my love and something that I enjoy and I have a passion for. But at the same time, you know, I want to build a career in esports. Pro Battle League wants to build a sustainable esports league.
So, XTV wants to build it. Let me see if they're online still. Hey, they are. 60. Okay, they're playing CS. They were playing like a weird dinosaur game earlier. Not really a big deal. I'll continue on.
And maybe TF2 is not the answer for that. We really hope it is, and we believe that with Arena Respawn, that we can get players of a lower skill level together, have competitive matches, and have a lot of fun.
You can do that with sixes. So, years ago, I played in a pickup group that played 6v6 TF2. None of us had any idea what we were doing. We didn't know how to play the game to its fullest, but we still had fun. Like, it's still a fun game. There's nothing holding anybody back from just trying it out. It's really easy to set up. There are like a million guides online to set up a server. It's a lot easier to set it up for new players than, you know, Arena Respawn, which requires a lot of things other than just a config. So you set up your server, and you hop in with some friends, and you play 6v6 with the whitelist. You can off-class all you want. You can play whatever you want, and it's fun. And there's no reason to change that. Just because, you know, we think that maybe, potentially, Arena Respawn's going to be more fun for new players, but not old players. But, like, at the same time, the new players can play sixes. I mean, that's open. I'm an admin, and I coach newbie mixes, which happen every Friday. If you're interested in trying 6v6 TF2, check it out. Newbie mixes, just search it on Steam. It's a Steam group. You can get notifications. But, where was it going? That was a tangent among tangents. It's really easy to start playing competitive TF2. Sixes, Highlander, there are already formats for new players. 4v4 is a format that exists in UGC too that you can, I mean, you can try. I don't think it's very fun, but you might. So these formats exist already, and there's no reason to drop sixes to replace it with a format that does something that all of these do, or something that... there's no need to drop the format that has been proven to do all of these things for a format that you think can do all of these things. I don't understand the drop of coverage of sixes, other than I'm bored of sixes, which just say that, and then, you know, people aren't going to be, like, saying, you know, Arena Respawn's the future, I love XTV. They're going to be saying, you know, that's fine, we'll maybe watch Team Fortress TV for sixes coverage now, rather than, oh, I guess sixes isn't happening anymore. Because, like, you know these 108,000 people, like, the vast majority of them don't understand the competitive community, the competitive formats. So anything that you say, anything that Eckstein says in this vlog is kind of like a broad, like, it changes what a lot of people think. Because to a lot of people, this is competitive Team Fortress 2. This vlog is how they get info about competitive Team Fortress 2. I'm going to quit tangenting.
And that's really what we're trying to do is build up a community of Arena Respawn players, particularly in the Northwest and the West Coast right now, and then have awesome events.
So what he wanted to do as well was build up lower level players to play Arena Respawn. And I think that's what he just said. He might say it in a little bit. Excuse me. But TF2 has a pretty big player base. There are like 600 plus players that played in ESEA last season. And a few thousand that played in UGC in North America alone. So you have this big player base for Highlander and 6v6. Highlander's not a really competitive, or not a very viable game for an actual competitive scene because it has so many players. 9 players is a lot of players. 6v6 is right around the golden number that most esports are, which is 5v5, which I think is a big reason they're pushing 5v5 Arena Respawn, honestly. But 6v6 is right around there, and it's proven to be good. But what XTV and PBL want to do with this is change to a lesser competitive mode with people that aren't as good as the best of the best. People that aren't even close to as good as the best of the best. And I forget the exact words that I used, but you don't want these players that aren't as good to be considered, you know, the top of the line players. There's no reason to punish the players that put thousands and thousands of hours into TF2 by recruiting people that aren't as good as them and having them play a not as fun format. Words.
And tie in local sponsors and get businesses involved and have really cool stuff going.
You can do that with 6s just as well as you can do it with Arena Respawn. I don't think it could happen with either. But if you think it's possible to do with Arena Respawn, it's possible to do with 6s. And in my opinion, I feel like it'd be easier. Because it's easier to explain 6s to someone than Arena Respawn. Because Arena Respawn, there's a lot of rules that start the game. There's a lot of different variances that can happen inside of the game. In 6s, there are these 4 characters that you play. Sometimes, you know, there are these 5 other ones that you play too. But there are these 4 characters that you play. And you capture the control points. And when you capture all of them, you win. And then Arena Respawn is, you know, there's a pick and ban system, and you do all this and that and the other, and they can be off class. Oh, that weapon does this weapon does that. There's a lot more stuff that is thrown at you when it really isn't for 6s. And I guess if you want to, you know, attract local sponsors, which I don't think you can do with either format, keeping it as simple as possible is going to be your best bet to do that. And maybe for a player that knows TF2, that's not going to be, you know, they're going to be about as easy to watch. It's going to be, you know, I know what that unlock does, so it makes sense. But people that don't, you know, understand TF2, they're like, oh, there's a new gun. I wonder what that, okay, I don't know what that just did, but it did a thing. Ooh, the cat, okay, I'm lost now. Which, I mean, I don't, that doesn't sound like a good idea to attract local sponsors, because not many people, like, there are a lot of people play this game, but, like, not that many people. Like, a lot of people don't know what anything in this game is. So, to keep it from anything other than this class with these guns, like, you know, that's the soldier. He has a rocket launcher and a shotgun. You know, that's the soldier. He has, like, you know, 30 different weapons he could be using at any given time. Also, he might not exist in some games, and he might exist in some other games. Like, it's not a very good, you know, format for attracting non-TF2 players to watch, in my opinion.
You know, one of the side effects of this, and it's something that, you know, over the years, you know, XTV has invested money in, you know, flying myself out to Montreal. I've gone out to Montreal twice. I've gone out to Pennsylvania 3 times now. Went out to Europe for I-42. And, you know, it's just not necessarily the best use of our resources to get events together.
And it might not be. So you don't have to do that. But you also don't have to switch to Arena Respawn to be local, which is, I've already mentioned that, but, like, you don't have to switch everything up so you can do this one thing better. So you can pursue the local events thing all you want, but you don't have to switch what format you're playing to do that. That doesn't really make sense.
But, if we're focused on the West Coast and the Northwest, it's really easy for me to get Portland Burnsiders together, for us to have a 20-person LAN once a month that really doesn't cost me much at all.
And you can do that. You can have your 20-person Burnsider LAN, but you don't have to talk to your 108,000 followers about how Arena Respawn has anything to do with it. Like, you can have your 20-person LAN all you want, and nobody will bother you. But, like, that doesn't really have anything to do with 5v5 and 6v6.
Similarly, you know, we're starting to work with organizations up in Seattle, or we're interested in some other organizations in Oregon that run game rooms. And so for us to get, you know, a team from Seattle, a team from Tacoma, a team from Portland, and a team from Eugene together, and have them battle it out and have it be this awesome event where each of those teams has their sponsors, has their backers, that's really easy for us to do and to accomplish.
I feel like that's cool, but why would anybody watch that? Why would anyone watch 5 randoms from Tacoma play Arena Respawn? Like, it's not going to be it might have a couple neat moments in it, but going into it, I don't even know what game I'm going to watch, because it could be so different from any other game. So, like, it's such a hit or miss thing. Like, are these 5 people from Tacoma going to beat these 5 people from Portland? It might matter to the people that live in those places, but that's sustainable in a sports league because a lot of people know about the sports. That's not a very sustainable esport model because, you know, 80,000 people playing constantly might not be a small number, but spread out over, you know, the population of the US, let alone, you know, the rest of the world that plays. That's a really small number, and a lot of people aren't going to care. The vast majority of people aren't going to care. Like, you know, when whatever team from, you know, whatever state you live in goes to the Super Bowl, you might tune in. And, you know, people that even aren't from that state will tune in, or like that area. They'll tune in and they'll be like, "Ah, cool, this is football. I know how football works. I played it as a kid." Nobody played Arena Respawn as a kid. Nobody knows how it works. So, like, this regional thing, I don't understand it. If you get it to work, I'll be impressed, but getting it to work with 5v5 Arena Respawn, or 6v6 TF2, or another sport, esport, like your dinosaur game thing, whatever you want to do, but I don't think it's a very successful model.
And Pro Battle League definitely has very lofty goals of building these kind of smaller level teams, these smaller clubs that are based off of regionalities, based off locality, and then build that up to, you know, hopefully eventually we have enough sponsorship support that we can have pro players that are paid by the Pro Battle League to play TF2 full time.
The thing with that is, the moment you stop using, you know, less good local people and you start using pro players, the pro players are just going to dunk on everybody. It'll be like awful to watch. It'll just be roll after roll after roll, and it'll be lame. That transition isn't as easy as you say. It's not as easy as... And then once we get the league working with the bad players, we, you know, get the new players to come in and play, and then everything works out. Yay, competitive esports. It's not that simple. And I mean, you know that it's not that simple. You being Eckstein, who I've been having a conversation with for almost 50 minutes now. Wow. Okay. So yeah, like, it's not that easy. So why would you try to sell it as being that easy? It doesn't make any sense.
And to create a very exciting aspect of competitive entertainment. And that's a big feature as well. You know, I was talking to some players from the Sixes community and talking about, you know, spectating it and what's the interesting aspects of spectating Sixes versus Arena Respawn, or just the goals of creating an exciting format of competitive TF2. And, you know, we think that Arena Respawn brings a really exciting format that Highlander player...
This is the we that really made me upset. The first time I watched this video, as I was writing out a reply on TeamFortress.tv, which is a competitive forum for talking about TF2. The we that he uses. I know a lot of people that help out with XTV, that do casts and whatnot, that really don't like Arena Respawn. So when he says we there, he means me, Eckstein, and the people that I've convinced to like Arena Respawn. We all love Arena Respawn. But, like, when he says we to the people that watch him, to the 108,000 people that are subbed to him, and, you know, the 5,000 or so that have watched it already, and, you know, the more that are going to watch this video, we means everybody. We means this is the opinion of the vast majority of the competitive community, and it's not. That's not what we want. That's what he wants.
Players from pubs can really get into it. Arena Respawn works really well as a pub format, and you know, in the end, though, as we build up...
And, I mean, I agreed with that. Arena Respawn works great as a pub format. I just don't think it's a good competitive format.
These kind of smaller level teams and the reserve club teams, and if we get to that pro level where we're playing players, and we realize that Arena Respawn is not really a deep enough format to really kind of take it to that next level, and if Sixes has continued to grow...
This is when I was like, oh, cool, they'll accept Sixes eventually, and then he says this.
And continue to do its thing on the side, and has implemented an open whitelist and implemented a ban system, you know, then that really...
So, if we do this weird thing, and this weird thing doesn't work out, and then you guys do your own weird thing, and your weird thing works out, we'll just hop on your weird thing. Like, why don't you just pick the game that, without any developer support, has managed to sustain a competitive community for the past, like, 6 or 7 years now? Like, I don't understand how you could be you could possibly think that it's a good idea to switch from this.
It does show that, well, no, Sixes is a very strong format, very enjoyable. People...
No, if Sixes changes, it's not going to be as strong, though. If the Sixes format changes, then, you know, it's going to be less good because of the reasons that I've talked about over the past 50 minutes. And I'll kind of end a thing, too, at the end of this.
Want to see it, want to watch it, want to play it. And at that time, when we make that jump to the pro level, we might just switch over to Sixes teams and bring in the Sixes format. For Pro Battle League, the Sixes is not, you know, excluded. It's not, like, blacklisted. It is something that we could integrate in the future. But with Arena Respawn, 5-player teams, and the open whitelist, the bans, we really feel like it's a fun, entertaining format and will help us in our quest to build up a West Coast regional esports league.
But that's... Oh, error encoding. Okay, we're good now. The thing with that is, that's great for your West Coast Esport League, maybe if it works out with this weird stuff that you want to implement. But that's not necessarily what's best for the whole of the competitive community. So you might be focusing on your 5 people from Portland and your 5 people from Seattle or whatever. But that's such a tiny amount of players that get a good end of this deal anytime soon. So you leave the vast majority of the competitive community in the dark for a while until you expand your league, which I don't think will ever happen. Until you expand this league, this magical league that is somehow gonna, you know, start an entirely new game, which, I mean, Arena Respawn is. Arena Respawn is not TF2. Arena Respawn is pick, ban, you know, it's not a game mode that is in that is in the game Team Fortress 2. Like, none of it is Team Fortress 2. Instead of trusting this game that has been around forever. And, you know, I just don't understand that.
That, you know, in the future we can take nationally and take to other places. But that's really what our focus is in 2015. And for XTV, you know, and where I put my resources, you know, the future of ESEA is cloudy. I don't really care for ESEA.
A lot of people don't care for ESEA. But the people that play competitive Team Fortress 2 more than a couple hours a week, the people that, you know, people like me that scrim this game and maybe aren't even the best, people exactly like me that scrim this game 5 nights a week, 3 hours a night, that want to really improve at this game, ESEA is the best thing for them right now. And if an option to play the game that we love comes up that is better than ESEA, we'll hop on it. But CEVO wasn't, like, CEVO is just as bad as ESEA in a lot of aspects, so it died down. UGC has never been anywhere near as good as ESEA at a high level because of the lack of an anti-cheat client, because of the lack of a LAN, because of the lack of, you know, prevention of sandbagging and stuff. Which, I mean, ESEA doesn't do the best job of, but, you know, they try a little bit, kind of. And that's maybe not even the best point, but I digress. I'll move on in the video.
I don't really want to put my resources in with them and their business model because I don't feel like they've done enough for the community and growing the community as a whole.
That's perfectly fine for you to do with your resources because they are yours. But the competitive community, the competitive Sixes community is more than ESEA. The competitive community is Froyotech. The competitive community is Elevate. The competitive community is, random open teams that are going to be playing this next season. It's not about ESEA. Just because ESEA is the best thing for us, I mean, that doesn't define us. The competitive community is the players. ESEA is, it's not the best. It's not like a Disney cartoon villain like a lot of people think it is. But I mean, I agree. It's not a great league, but it's the best league that we have as players of this game. And to just throw away support for an entire competitive format, which is, one of the longest running competitive formats in any game, and I've said that so many times this video, but to get rid of that is just silly.
So focusing on Arena Respawn is where it's going to be at. We're going to continue our UGC coverage on Monday nights because I think that UGC is a great league, free to play. And
okay, yeah. UGC is a great league for beginner players to play in, and I played in it for about a year, and it was a great experience for me. So yeah, go ahead and support UGC. Play in UGC if you want.
And, if ESEA dies, then go support UGC Sixes. Even if ESEA survives, go and support UGC Sixes because it's a great stepping stone into being involved in a paid league.
I almost forgot this was in the video. And this is the thing that really just hits it home as to how disconnected Eckstein is from the competitive community. And like I said, this whole video, I don't want to be mean. I just want to point out flaws that in the video that he's presenting to his huge following. UGC Sixes is not and has never been a good league. If you've watched a single UGC Sixes cast in any division, it's nowhere near even watching an open cast in ESEA. So for those that don't know, that maybe don't keep up, Open is the lowest division in ESEA. Platinum is the highest division in UGC, and it is not as good as Open in ESEA. So it's there for new players to get used to the game, and I love that it's there. But to throw all your eggs in the UGC basket, I don't even know if that's a phrase, is to do that is kind of silly, kind of short-sighted. UGC hasn't really done, a whole bunch in terms of growing the game either. They've done some. Their Highlander League is pretty crowded, but, I don't know. I don't get how you could, ESEA has made a lot of mistakes, and a lot of people don't like them, and I'm one of those people. I don't really like ESEA, but it is the best thing that is out there. It is better than UGC Sixes. UGC Highlander's great, but UGC Sixes it's not good.
But, Pro Battle League, we're just going to be going hard. We'll be having our weekly pugs and getting our game on and just doing everything we can to offer an awesome service to, the viewers, the spectators, and the players. So I think, in summary, the strength of competitive TF2 is still very strong. We still have a good chunk of players, and we're a smaller market than Dota, or we're a smaller market than Counter-Strike. But myself and Pro Battle League do believe that there's something special about TF2 that these other games don't offer. So it's still our passion. It's still what we want to pursue. And I think 2015 is going to be a fantastic year.
So, he in that closing, he says that we have something special to offer over, CSGO and the other big esports that are MOBAs. But at the same time, he's trying to conform and become one of those big esports like CSGO and like the pick and bans from the MOBAs and stuff. So, there's something special about us, but we're gonna, conform anyways.
Thanks so much for all your guys' support, not just last year, but over the years. We celebrated our 5-year anniversary.
This is kind of when it gets to not be about
television, which is pretty crazy. And, like I said, we're just excited to keep going strong. We'll still obviously have our top 10s and our moments of glories. Still, please keep submitting your clips for that to make those as high level quality as you can. And, well, that's it for this vlog, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Eckstein. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out!
Okay. So.
Ew.
I'll get it off that screen. Okay. So kind of in summary, 6v6 is in a lot of the high level players in both Highlander and Sixes opinions. 6v6 is like the echelon, I don't know if that's the right word, it's the top tier TF2 format. And it's great that other formats exist, but the most competitive and the most fun to watch typically, the most diverse meta is in Sixes. And to stray away from the community that has been a thing for so long in just hopes that this other thing might work better and that Valve might finally love us, it doesn't seem worth it. And, I mean, XTV is Eckstein's organization, and he can do whatever he wants with it. But I feel like posting these videos is seriously hurting the health of the community overall. Trying to split it off into trying to split, the lower level Sixes players off to play Arena Respawn with him it's not really going to do anything but hurt the game in the long run. And that's kind of what happened with Sivo, in that they tried to do something different and in their eyes better, but it ended up just kind of making the community seem smaller because it was spread out more. And I mean, I don't know. It's up for you guys to decide. If you watched it all the way through, then congrats on you, because that's an hour and 2 minutes. Jesus. Okay. Thank you for watching. I'm going to be trying to post more silly videos. You can see the kind of video that I usually do on my channel if you're new here. Not silly videos, but, competitive moments, funny competitive moments, stuff like that. Yeah. I'll be uploading stuff more often. I'm going to be going back to university, or back to my apartment soon, where my internet is much better. So hopefully the streams will come back soon. Hopefully this hour and, probably 3 minutes by the end of it of content is going to be enough to tide you over until then. I'm sorry that it was so long waiting, and such a long video. But yeah, thanks for watching. You can check me out on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, all at KevinIsPone. Thank you guys for watching. Yeah, I think that's it.